Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome. We are glad you're here. I know I am usually not a face you see on a Monday, but I am glad to be here. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Katie Gideon, and I will be the on-camera facilitator for this final week in December, week five setup, as well as again, it's kind of that weird space where you got half the week in December and half the week in January. So feel free to close out your December journal if you so wish to do so, and then start up your January one as well. We will be queuing both journal pages, so we'll be able to kind of help you get through that. But as always, if you have any questions or concerns, you can also shout out my co-facilitator who you will see in the chat, part of the Jennifer Monday team. We've got a Jennifer K with us. And so always excited to see her and to work with her. We had a good catch up because I don't think I had seen her in a while. But we were chatting holidays. So I hope all of you had a wonderful Christmas, as well as some of the other holidays that are celebrated. And I hope you all are looking forward to the new year. But before we do all of that, I do see a lot of names that I recognize when I do fill in on the Mondays. So it is good to see everybody. Welcome back. But as always, if you are new here, you can participate in as much or as little as you want to. But just double check if you want to work in that larger chat that it is set to everyone, because hosts and panelists is the default, and that comes just to myself and Jennifer. But we're always happy to answer questions there and any concerns you have there. But for the most part, we assume that you're here to provide support, celebrate, as well as get inspiration from the other Sonder fam in the chat. And so I did put the clip up here. We have our upcoming January exclusive, the New Year Real You, your 2026 Glow Up that Meha is hosting. That'll be on January 15th. So there is the extra fee to attend this. And don't worry, if you cannot attend in person or live, you will be able to get that recording via email from the team. Jennifer also put in the Eventbrite link to that so you can sign up there. But I think, as someone had already mentioned, 2025 was going to be kind of difficult, or those things. So we do have a great kind of segue into what we're going to reflect on in this one, because it's a really nice transition. So as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. As always, redirect customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkensonder.com. As we know, the mail can get a little hectic this time of year, but if there's anything that you feel is kind of emergent, you can certainly send that over to the host and panelist channel so that we can kind of flag that for headquarters. But if not, hello@silkensonder.com will be the best way to get any of those customer service things corrected. And as always, Sonder Social is a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So we are glad that you've come exactly as you are. We should still be leaving a little bit more uplifted, a little bit more optimistic, and a little bit more excited. But if you need to set up some of those mental and emotional barriers, please do so. Like I said, this should not be triggering. I will also admit that I have been in a little bit of a interesting mood recently. Part of it is I do think the seasonal depression component and just the dark days, hours. I made some last minute travel plan changes, so I didn't get to spend Christmas with my family back in the US, which always bums me out a little bit, but I try to kind of work through it. So, with that being said, there may be some things that we just don't want to talk about, some things we're not ready to explore yet, some things that we're not ready to reflect on, and that is okay. No one is looking over your shoulder to see how much progress you are or are not making in this particular journal. We are glad that you've come exactly as you are to take whatever you need from this social, because that's why it's here. So we are wrapping up renewal. And for me, I thought this was kind of an interesting initial theme when I saw that it was announced in December, and for the December, because again, it seems so obvious that it maybe should be a January one. But I will be honest, I have completely fallen in love with the idea of this being a almost perfect swan song for the end of the year. I love that it is an opportunity to sit not only from just the getting excitement of doing something different, but being able to kind of go a little bit more into the celebratory mode of like, I don't care how we got here, we're here now. So now we can look at it and kind of determine that way. That was always kind of even the approach that I feel like I had when something went wrong. It was the kind of lessons learned component. It's like I don't quite care how we got here now, but how can we move forward and pivot and fix it? So I appreciated these two quotes with the every dawn brings the promise of renewal if we but open our eyes to see it. And sometimes that can be forced on you with having to embrace something new or something different or having to reframe or get a different idea. But I do still think it's that being just always having that open idea, the lens there, being able to switch between all of those as you kind of move. And I do think this is another one of those transitions are a part of life, allowing for perpetual renewal. So as you kind of move into that traditional period between even just like the chaotic work time into the holidays, into starting up the first of the year, and even the ending of a year, beginning of a new year, end of the month, beginning of a new month, kind of all of those new transition beginnings. I think it is certainly one of those really great opportunities to kind of add that more optimistic reflection when it comes to renewal, as opposed to the let's dwell on the negative and see what we needed to do different or do better or come up with a better solution or a better answer. So that's kind of how I have really learned to appreciate, I think, renewal a little bit better and give myself even a little bit more grace with as you kind of start to navigate some of those just transitional periods in your life in general, because you're not going to have all the answers. You're not going to know all the parameters. And so I think it's embracing a little bit more of that. How can I be the best adaptable version I can be? And so we will be closing out the mind map, but do not worry, we're not adding another kind of week to that. It is going to be a bonus mind map. So you'll be able to find either a new spot in your December journal or a new spot in your January journal. And you'll be able to include that because, like I said, I think it's a really great way to start thinking of. Um, the newness of 2026. And then we'll do our rosebud floor and reflection, which is going to be on page 50 of your December journal or a blank page in your January journal. And then those weekly setup pages, which we'll talk to about as we get a little bit more into the social. So, if you have been to our weekly setups before, you know that we do have the mind map question that are usually across 4 weeks, and it is a added layer of reflection and perspective when it comes to the month's theme. This one we're going to do a little bit different because it is that bonus week because we had a week 5 when it comes to December. So you can continue to work on your mind map, and don't worry if you missed any of the previous weeks under the renewal mind map. I do have that slide in here, so you'll be able to jot those down if what you want. But instead, we get to start anew with this bonus mind map. So definitely find a place in your journal. And when I go off camera, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to read through my thoughts and perspectives. And then when I play some music, I want you to take kind of the first moment to take a couple deep breaths and to clear your mind because we want to think about the growth, the knowledge space that was created in 2025. And so, with that in mind, what is something that you would want to experience in 2026? And so, you can consider what you might want to embrace, seek out, multiply, or bring along. But what I like about this potential rephrasing is you don't really need to come up with those action items yet. This is just that maybe initial brain dump, this initial jot down of where you think your head, your mind, your soul, all of those things could potentially be as we are transitioning from 2025 to 2026. We will reserve the action items and the resolutions and the to-do lists and all those other things for like the overall goal of what is going to be your word of the year, what's going to be your perspective, the theme, all of those. We're just going to wait and do that at the beginning of the year. You can also do that at any of the monthly setups. But here are just some other ideas is that you can, the biggest thing is I was like, don't let this discourage you. I want you to reframe or adjust the question so that you can find what works for you and your journey. Because maybe it is thinking in bigger, loftier goals. Maybe it is linking a little bit more deeper into something specific. because I would say me in particular, I'm definitely going to have a year of transition. So I'm not ready to quite settle on a word of the year yet. But I do know that that's where I'm going. So I think it's more of what can I do to prepare myself for some of those transitions. And so that's kind of what I am focusing on, and that is what I am looking on. And like I said, here are those four questions from the renewal theme if you're interested in those. But just because you don't have to do all of these things, you are not behind. They're just options there that you can have to do so. So I would love to hear what kind of your thoughts either on the reflection part of 2025 or maybe something that you're looking forward to in 2026, or even just I think this is maybe where my headspace is going to be at, or this is where I might be at, because you can just start talking into those things, because I feel like the best way is to start putting those thoughts and feelings and emotions out into the universe, and you still have ample time to kind of sort through them as we go. So I'm going to stop talking. Let me know if I have to go back to a particular slide, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. But what I like really about this one is it's really just to start thinking on those things. And to be totally honest, I'm not a New Year's resolution person. I'm actually really not the biggest celebrator of New Year's. Had a couple incidents happen ages ago that I get all excited for the holidays, but I would say New Year's is just something that kind of happens, I feel like, in my opinion. So resolutions are not my thing. I really wasn't a word of the year person yet either, until I started working with Silk and Sonder and that type of journaling thing, and that kind of motivated me to eventually find that kind of thought process. So 2025 for me has been a back to basics, and I've really loved leaning into that because I think I just lost myself a little bit with some of the newness and the changes and the transitions and kind of all those things. So I still like coming up with some sort of theme or some sort of idea. I have found that that really helps with focus and guidance and kind of one of those things. But when it comes to the day-to-day stuff, I feel like it's one of those that breaking it down a little bit smaller. And I don't like to commit to those type of things in that type of form or fashion. I cannot be tied down in that regard. Um, but I know a lot of people have other perspectives on that, and I think it's just something that you eventually kind of come to work for you. And at the same time, that kind of preserves just your enthusiasm and your mental stability and adaptability and all those things. So that's why I certainly love the idea of some of these things, but also just like that kind of initial start to look into this before we go, like I said, launch in with the inundation of, what are you going to do with 2026? So thank you everybody for sharing. So now, if you are in your December journal to close out those things, we're going to be on page 50 for that rosebud thorn exercise. And if you are already in your January journal, then you'll be able to find just a blank spot there as well. But we're going to definitely still keep going into the reflection sense. And I do think with this kind of rosebud thorn, because this is technically the last rosebud thorn of the year, you can treat it like that, even though we do kind of look at it. If you've already kind of taken the sneak peek in the January journal, you'll see that we have some yearly reflection opportunities, as well as the typical end of month reflection. But you can kind of tie all that in. But the rose is going to be that highlight, something that made you happy, that made you smile, something that is getting you excited. And so for me, that's Stranger Things. I was initially kind of a hater of the series. I didn't want to do it because everybody else was doing it, but I love this. I love the nostalgia feel. I love that it's sci-fi adjacent. I also read A Wrinkle in Time growing up, so I love all of the connection pieces. The playlist that I put together is a little 80s adjacent, but I love it, and I'm going to be quite sad when it comes to a conclusion. But I've been here the whole row, the whole ride, and I'm so excited. The bud is something that you're looking forward to, something that's exciting, something that you can kind of take that intentional optimism about, something that is maybe on the horizon that you haven't sorted out what you want yet. And for me, I have some couple friends. One of the big traditions over here in Scotland is Hogmanay, and that is that transition between Christmas and New Year's. So we are kicking off the Edinburgh Hogmanay celebration by doing the torch processional, which will be super fun. They give you giant sticks that they let you light on fire, and you get to wander around the streets with it. So I'm excited about that. My little pyromaniac will live a little bit, even though, again, I'm still a little baffled that they just hand you these torches, like a little bit of a medieval moment. But super excited about that. And then the thorn, I someone I feel like ages ago on one of the socials was like, I don't want to dwell on the negative. And that kind of helped me change almost my perspective of how I approached the thorns. So these, in fact, can be the negative things. These can be the low points, the challenges. But what I've almost transitioned into, what is taking up too much time, energy, or effort on my part, either in my head, my brain, my heart, my body. And so that is kind of how I think of it, is a little bit more of what is taking up too much time, energy, or effort. And that becomes my thorn. And I feel like situationship sums it all up. Why does it always happen at the end of the year and the culmination of all those other weird transitions? But to be honest, that one is taking up way too much time, energy, and effort that can absolutely be used elsewhere. But as always, I would love to do that check in with each and every one of you. We always love to celebrate those roses, get excited for those buds, and acknowledge again some of those thorns that are just taking up too much space and is that just like nagging point of the week. So, again, we're on page 50 in your December journal, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And do please continue to share in the chat if that is what you want to do, even as I move through the next couple sections. Because again, this is the time that you set aside for you and your journal prep or your community experience, kind of all those things. But thank you, everybody, for sharing your roses, your buds, or thorns. I know that this week can always be a bit challenging or a bit tricky in general, just because of the holidays, the visiting, the families, the friends, the commitments, all of those things, as well as overlay just, I would say, the traditional kind of winter colds and medical concerns, all those things. So it certainly becomes just that kind of weird temporary existence in between holidays with some people kind of working, not working. If you have school age kids or college age children that are back home, it just looks a little bit different than what some of your weeks tend to do. So, and I do think this is a really great exercise just to kind of reflect on that, just being able to see the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And again, take that just added moment of the intentional decision of what am I going to do with these? I have given them a little bit of a platform by acknowledging them in the rosebud thorn categories. But then you get to decide what you are going to take with you into the next week or what you're just going to leave in the week behind. Um, so I feel like this comes a little clear what I'm going to take with me into the next week and what I would like to leave into the week behind. But that is why I enjoy this exercise so much because it is that moment where I just get to look and see and have a little bit of ownership there. And then, as always, the way I recommend approaching the weekly setup pages is to start by asking yourself, what do you need? Because what you need can be something different. What you need is the copy and paste from last week. What you need can be something completely different. It can be a repurposing moment, or sometimes what you need is also maybe you need a break. So if I find myself getting a little, confused, a little lost in the kind of explanation of it or the designing of it or the thinking of it, I will ask myself, what do I need from this week? Because for me, it is that kind of weird in between space of holidays. So it's like I need a little bit more structure, but I also need to make sure that I am resting and relaxing because I don't know about you guys, but January for me always is a little chaotic and it comes kind of out of the woodworks and it can be a little bit tricky. And sometimes I am just ill prepared because I either didn't rest enough or I just rested too much. So that's why I always like to ask what you need because this week is going to look a little bit different than last week. It could look a little bit different than 4 weeks from now. It may look a little bit different than the week you had in August and all those things. So there is no right or wrong way to set this up. Because sometimes, like I said, it's exactly as listed in the journal, or sometimes it's completely different from what the journal has originally structured to. Or again, sometimes it's leaving and leaning into some of that white space. So we'll start at the top of page 52 if you're in your December journal, or page 26 if you have already transitioned into your January journal. So page 52 in December or page 26 in January. And so start at the top. That's just how my brain works. And I'm going to go down the page as we go. But I always ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? And so it's this week I want to feel because this is, again, that intentional optimism and the ability to take control of my week as I am experiencing the rose, the buds, and thorns of the week ahead. This is my ability to come back to center and be like, well, this is what I set out to do, and here's how I can structure my week to support that while navigating those rose, the buds, and the thorns. And so sometimes that is leaning into the word of the year, your word of the quarter, your word of the month. Maybe it is the same word that you had last week. Maybe it is leaning into that renewal theme. Maybe it is 1% better. Maybe it is more of something, a less of something, kind of that action, and then the rest, that kind of teeter-totter component. Maybe because each of the days are a little bit different because we've got holidays right smack in the middle of the week. So maybe it's a different word for each day. Maybe it is a sticker. Maybe it's leaning into the alliterations. Maybe it is still not quite ready to give up the holiday feel. But I'm going to turn on a quick song, but would love to hear how you want to feel this week, and we'll see you soon. Okay, so now that we have potentially how we want to feel this week, we are now I'm gonna combine the next two sections, but we're still staying on page 52 in your December journal and page 26 in your January journal with those weekly major three goals. For me, the weekly major three goals are usually those mental and emotional reminders that I have to give myself so that I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week. And for me, one of the bigger culprits is overthinking. So I like this idea of pivoting to not only embracing still the overthinking skill set that I have mastered, but why not take that pivot and turn it into the good stuff as well? Overthinking the holidays, something fun, overthinking the activities and the logistics and all of those things. So I love that idea. So that is kind of what I am leaning into a little bit. If we're going to overthink, we might as well do it positively. But maybe you still want to lean into some of those themes or the categories with the health, the home, the work, the mind, body, soul. Maybe it ties directly into how you want to feel. So the bottom left, someone wanted to feel happy. So they wanted a happy mind, a happy body, a happy soul. So adding those connections, I think, is really helpful, especially if you just need that little extra support to help establish and accomplish those goals. But at the same time, sometimes the major three goals are just the biggest three things that you need to get done this week. And so maybe that's take down the decorations. Maybe it is start some of the cleaning. Maybe it is packing, all of those type of things. So it could be, again, those big three things. Maybe you need a little bit more structure on each day because, you're off work or you're an educator and so you're out of school at the moment. So you need to kind of hit those goals for like a morning goal, a midday goal, and an evening goal. We do love the alliterations. I think an alliteration is a really great way to trick our brains. They get really fascinated with alliterations, and that is a trick that I started using, especially when I was tackling my to-do lists, when I was having just my weird seasonal fatigue moment. And I find it really quite clever. So I like the idea of the four C's at the bottom right, which is a create, a consume, a covert, and commune, kind of branching into each of those different categories as well. So it's still establishing, a goal for you, a goal for others, a goal to move, and a social goal. Maybe it is just the manifestations and the reminders and that type of mental and emotional clarity that you need to get through that week. Maybe it's just two focus points. Maybe it's a home and a work. And again, maybe this is where the stickers live or the to-do list lives. Because as we roll into the to-dos, these can certainly be those traditional to-dos, or these can be the action items that you're tying into those major three goals that you want to accomplish. And so you can do that with a to-do list. Maybe it's a to-do list. The difference between the to-do and the to-do is that everything is to done, but you celebrate it along the way. And I have had a hard time with the to do and the da da, with just my low lack of energy. And I usually then fall to the Eisenhower matrix because it does help me sort all the random things that need to get done. But at the same time, I change these categories a little bit. You can do, decide, delegate, or delete. I don't delete anything. I tend to delay it just because I am alone and unafraid in this apartment, so to speak. So everything that needs to be done has got to be done by me, but it can be delayed. But I have had to certainly like trick myself a little bit because I have been low energy, low motivation. So I've been leaning a lot more on the Pomodoro technique where I do set like a couple songs and it's like, well, at the end of this like kind of small playlist that I've created, you need to have this done. And then you can kind of get up, treat yourself, all those things. But again, maybe it's just a recategorization of things. As I said, maybe this week is not your own. So it becomes into a don't do this instead, or a want and a need breakdown. Maybe you're like, Katie, the to-do list is just not going to happen this week because chaos, and that's fine. Put the sticker on it, cover it up, draw a nice little picture or a doodle, something that's going to make you smile, that's going to make you happy, or even just the celebratory moment of this is what I accomplished this week with those wins. And so you have the option to do that. So again, I am going to give you some time to work on this, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Yeah, I had not heard the Blur's Day before, but that's amazing because that is absolutely on point. It was one of those I joke with my parents, they are fully retired. And so even I'm like, well, what are you guys doing today? And they're like, we don't even know what day it is. So I feel like it is certainly embracing that idea where it's like, well, they'll even sometimes, especially this past week, they've been asking me what day it is. I was like, I don't know, I'm not working. So we're just in this weird perpetual, no one knows what day it is. No one knows what time it is, and it's just chaos. It's like being at the airport. But thank you for sharing. So now we're going to overlay that other kind of thing that kind of is out there looming of ways we can accomplish things for the week. And that is with our habit and activity tracker. And so this is at the bottom of page 52 in your December journal or the bottom of page 26 in your January journal. And I did like this particular picture with the inner voice that 80% of the voice you hear each day is your own. So if I'm already overthinking, let's be kinder to myself. And so why not embrace a little bit more of that positive overthinking, or at least maybe more productive overthinking. But the habits and activities, the way this works for me on a weekly basis is there are three things that I want to do every single day, every single week, because I am a creature of habit, and that is move, journal, and read. This is the week and the week before, those kind of go out the window. I don't set goals for that. Those are just the three things that I want to make sure that I am setting aside diligent time and intentional time to get those things accomplished. So luckily, moving is already kind of built into it. One, because the Scottish do love a good walk on Christmas Day and Boxing Day and Christmas Eve Day and New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. And as I said, I'm gonna go do this torch procession where I basically get to run around the cobblestone streets with that. So girls getting her steps in today. So I have just found that the social things that I am signing up for are also falling into the mood category. So I am not diligently recording it like I normally do. And that's perfectly fine. Same thing with journaling and reading. I have done a lot more journaling just because it gets me something to do either in the morning or kind of the day sitting at my desk because I'm still trying to like kind of have work stuff to do, but there really aren't the same deadlines. So it is a really nice way to pass the time. And then same thing with reading. I hit my reading goal for this past year, so I feel like that's another one of those. So it's setting aside that particular amount of time that I really want to do. But maybe it is things that you don't want to do. Maybe it's the no goals. Maybe it's the no habits. Maybe it's the no activities. Maybe it is these are where those gentle mental and emotional reminders are. Or I did see someone was looking on Amazon for new washi tape. Maybe this is what we cover because that's what you need the week is you don't need those habits and activities this week because it's already just inherently being incorporated. And just because we have 5 lines does not mean you need to use all five. Maybe it's three things, maybe it's two things, maybe it's one thing. And again, maybe those holiday days look a little bit different than those blur days. And so it's a way to kind of structure it that way. And then y'all know that I am an iconography person. So I love these ideas, the winter self-care things. But also I have repurposed my expense tracker, and this is where I just get some of the inspiration. My doodling skills are not this good, but it's one of those things that I feel like it's given those kind of, a little bit more, excuse me, of a spotlight or a pedestal on some of those things that I'm already doing, like, keeping your feet warm. I wear slippers religiously around my apartment, but I've added socks, which I know sounds silly, but it's that little thing that kind of makes me happy because it's one of those things, nothing is more annoying than being up here in like sweatshirt, sweatpants, and my feet are cold. So I love that idea. And then just the other digital reminders. So I feel like it is a more elegant accomplishment because I've gotten the inspiration here. And I do add that to my adventure list and my bucket list for the month, which just is, like I said, a running list of things that I'm already kind of doing that I get really excited about. And I just like to celebrate those smaller moments because that is really what's helping me kind of as a day to day, just to kind of romanticize or just get excited about even just the magic in ordinary moments or the magic of mundane days, which is part of my back to basics of just getting excited for some of those day to day things that, felt tedious, felt boring, that I just wasn't excited to do. Because ever I am being tested on the thorn front sometimes, so why not turn some of these things that I would normally consider a thorn into something a little bit more special? So I am going to stop talking. I'm going to give you some time to work on these habits and activities, but I would love to hear what habits and activities you are working on, or if the Blur's Day kind of supersede those habits and activities. But again, bottom of page 52 in your December journal and the bottom of page 26 in your January journal. And we'll see you soon. Martina, that is a great question in regards to the weekly habit tracker versus the monthly habit tracker. For me, as I said, I am a creature of habit. And so I have the same three things on my monthly habit tracker every single month. Because, like I said, those are things that I want to intentionally set aside time for. I take those three things and I pull them into my weekly habit tracker. And that is where I add the lens of reality. And that is where how much time can I dedicate to these different activities based on what other things I have planned, the weather, what I workload is, what my school load is. So, like I said, for example, move. I do that every single day. And sometimes it looks like what I would consider a set traditional workout. Or it is just a walking to and fro from whatever social activity I had when I walk into the office. Same thing with do I get to set a time like and do I get to set and read like 4 or 5 chapters in my book, or do I have to say nope, you get 15 minutes because that's just your mental break for that moment. And same thing with the journaling. Is it something that I do get to spend some time on? Do I get to go and look at a full-blown Silk and Sonder recording on the YouTube channel to do kind of a deep dive into some of the prompts, or is it just the quick little post-it note mental check-in of I feel and I need? So that is how I embrace that, which helps me just kind of manage my expectations a little bit more around what can I accomplish without beating myself up for not doing all the things that I want to do, not accomplishing my to-do list, not meeting my goals so that I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week by overlaying these habits and activities that I also want to do. Because again, we all have the same 24 hours. It's just how we structure it and how we do it is the best way to do it. But also at the same time, I can be my own worst enemy with what I plan and what I want to get done. And so sometimes I just need a little help. So those are my thoughts on it. And so now we're going to flip over to page 53 in your December journal or page 27 in your January journal. And I do combine this whole page when we talk about what we need. I need that first page. That to me is the A side of the record. This is now the B side. So I diligently use that first page because that is what my just now foundational characteristics of my week looks like. And then I can sprinkle in this next page for some of the things that I need or some of the things that can be helpful. So the meal plan, it can be listed exactly as that. It can be something that you plan for, or it is something that you are tracking in real time. I have ulcerative colitis, an autoimmune condition, and there are times where I start to drift into superficial symptoms. So I diligently start tracking what I consume just so I can catch it as early as possible and either reassure myself that it is truly superficial symptoms, or if I need to, get somebody involved. Yes, Allison, it is a TikTok, sorry, it is an Instagram person. I think it's at Just Creates. I use a lot of her stuff. She's fantastic. So a lot of my snarky animals come from her. And then maybe it is something that you want to get a little bit creative with. Maybe it's the doodles. This is where your mental and reflection and opportunities are. Maybe it's the meal plan for the soul. Maybe it is the affirmations that you write down from the Silk and Sonder app. Maybe this is where you highlight the daily ritual responses. Maybe it's just your priorities. Maybe it's this is where you kind of lean into the particular theme. I personally love this section for the clothing tracker. I turn it into a clothing or a packing tracker, especially when I travel for work. I have to be cautious of how much I bring, and I have to feel like I repurpose a lot of like the jackets and the sweaters and the shoes. So this gets used for that. It is fantastic for that. I love using it to pack for things because I've just gotten a little bit more efficient with my packing. And there's nothing more satisfying than having a not so heavy bag, but every single thing that you're going to need for the week coming up. But again, maybe it's more of the things that you want to accomplish each day. I saw that someone likes to take 5 minutes before they go to bed to do some decluttering and picking up. Maybe that is part of your kind of end of day closures, similar to if you worked at a store or someplace like that and you had your end of the day responsibilities. Yeah, here it is, the jess.a.creates. So she's the similar vibe there. So yes, she is on Instagram. Maybe the mind body health plan again is something that you want to plan for, or maybe it is something that you're tracking a little bit more in real time of how you did something for your mind, your body, or your health. Maybe it's leaning into those alliterations where you can try to trick yourself. As I mentioned, I love the power of this I feel and I need. I have found hot air rises. No shock there. But I have an upstairs and a downstairs, so it gets very, very hot up here. And I have found that that makes me a little bit anxious. And I do think it's more of like I get consumed with work and I think is work making me anxious when really and truly I'm just hot. So I then get up and so then it's like I feel anxious. So it turns out I'm actually just hot and I need to walk downstairs and spend a little time downstairs and cool off. So I have found that to be a pretty powerful exercise of just that check-in of like, why am I feeling this way? And so therefore, what do I need? I keep little sticky notes there in case I want to just write it down and take that a little bit more intentionality to it. But it has been a bit of a game changer in that regard. At least for me. Maybe it's leaning into some of those self-care ideas. Maybe it is the 7 types of rest, which are social, spiritual, mental, creative, emotional, sensory, and physical. You can have multiple batteries from multiple sources, and sometimes you think that you are just physically tired, but really it could be a combination of any of these things. And then I do love, again, the iconography of it, but I love the idea of the 6 simple ways to leave a bad day behind because I do think I naturally kind of gravitate to those with kind of eating something simple, lying with your legs up on the wall, changing your clothes, getting into something more comfy, cozy, deep breaths, even the low stake activities. I love these very, very gentle reminders. Same thing with the difference between bright light, natural light, all of those things. So I just find these clever. And then I do love the inspiration of maybe things that you can learn from December. And then last but not least, the particular section here, it's shopping list. This can go hand in hand with the meal plan. And like I said, when I use my meal plan as a clothing and packing tracker, this is where all of the extra things go, the business cards, the adapters, the chargers, whatever else I could possibly need. But maybe this is where your seasonal bingo board lives. Maybe these are your gentle reminders for self-care, your mini breaks. The social check-ins can be quite important this time of year. So maybe you're diligently looking on those kind of friends and family that may have a little bit of a tougher time during this. And so being able to kind of naturally reach out to them in that capacity. Or again, the don't buy, the buy, especially as we move into the post-holiday sales. But this can be, again, this I think is a really great purpose to kind of add that extra boost of motivation or affirmation focus there. So I am going to play one more song and I will go through all these slides. Let me know if there's one in particular you want to see again, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And then, not to be outdone, we do have that very last section of the page, which is the I am loving. And I feel like a lot of you guys have been to my socials enough to know that I have a very sassy, snarky, somewhat sarcastic sense of humor. So, this is really what has been making me happy recently with just kind of the puns. I love a good pun. I'm an oceanography person, so I love the I'm dreaming of a great white Christmas. So that is kind of what I have been enjoying and getting a kick out of. But if you would like to share that in the chat, what you are currently loving, we'd love to have that like last moment of just positive celebration of kind of what the week has kind of culminated in, especially as we get excited for the week to come. And do Believe it or not, we have reached the end. Our hour goes by so quickly. But as always, we would love to consider having the conversation continue in the Silk and Sonder app. Love if you would share your pages. They provide such amazing inspiration. Not only do we use them in the socials that we do, but there is someone in the Silk and Sonder community that I guarantee you has taken one of your amazing ideas and ran with it and made it their own. And I just love the ability to repurpose and add that flexibility to come back to what do you need from your week. Again, there is the reminder for our new year Real You Glow Up for 2026 on January 15th. Also, this is a copy of my playlist. I will include the Spotify link into the chat as well. But we are certainly glad that you have joined us. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week as we enjoy and embrace the last of what 2025 has to offer. And I know we are looking forward to the week ahead as well as the potential of a new year as we go through this transition. So thank you for coming. I hope to see you at a future event real soon. Bye.
Hands touch, eyes meet, sudden silence, sudden heat, hearts sleep in a giddy world. He could be that boy, but I'm not that. Don't dream too far, don't decide on who you are, don't remember that rush of joy. He could be that boy. He could be that boy, but I'm not that girl. Light smile, light limb. She who's winsome, she wins him. Gold hair with a gentle curve. That's the girl he chose, and heaven knows. Don't wish, don't start wishing, only wounds the heart. I wasn't born